We hope they never happen, but sometimes breaches do occur. How do you respond and handle those breaches when and if they do? Stay tuned to find out more.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Greetings, everyone. We're back with more GSEC, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about incident handling and response. And I'm just going to go ahead and start there, Daniel. Sounds like the same thing. Like, why are there two words for incident handling and incident response?
Because, believe it or not, two different things.
Oh,
Yes.
I tell you what, that is confusing.
I know. Especially when most people use them interchangeably, that really adds to the confusion.
All right. Well, can you help us be a little less confused, tease those apart for us? I suspect this is a nuanced difference, right?
Yes, very much so, because both of those functions happen during an incident. And they are a response of some type to the incident, so you can see why a lot of people would use them that way. But let's start with the different concepts of incident handling and incident response, kind of make sure that we are aware of the two differences there, right? So the concepts are, in incident handling, I actually wrote down, I created definitions for these things because it's always helpful to have something you can just blurt out. I wrote, the planning, communication, and coordination activities needed so that you can efficiently resolve an incident, right? So this is going to mean like the person that does this or the team that does this is going to have very good soft skills, great communication skills. They're going to have strong project management skills, most likely, as well. This is what makes up a great incident handler, okay? So if you're wondering, I hope you noticed so far that I haven't said anything about, like, you're great at malware detection or anything like that.
Is this, for some reason, I go PR person, right? Is this kind of like a PR person?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because
or like an interface between like the people who are doing things and those who are like, you had a breach?
Yes.
Okay.
That is exactly the idea. Because here's what happens. An incident occurs, right? And then, Justin, you're slap busy because what are you doing? I've got a malware infection. We've got, data being exfiltrated. We got to start to isolate. We got to do this. We got to do that. And then what else is going on? Well, senior level management is going, how's it going? Well, how far are we? How long before? Can you tell me? Why don't you come in for a meeting and explain where you're at right now? Justin, if he's doing that work, he doesn't need that. What he needs is a handler to be the go-between to say, all right, people, here's what's going to happen. If you need any information, you come to me. You leave Justin and his team alone so that they can actually respond to the incident, okay? And we'll get to that in just a second, right? So as a handler, I need to be able to be really good at communication. I need to have those soft skills to be able to handle those people. I'm also probably the person where, if this is a large enough breach for a large enough company or organization, that I deal with, I might be the person that deals with the media, right? So I'm going to be out there doing, yes, something has occurred. We're very sorry that this has happened. We found a flaw in X, Y, or Z technologies, which was exploited by, APT threat or whatever, right? And I'm explaining that to them while Justin and his team continues to mitigate and triage. So that's an incident handler. You're starting to hopefully have already picked up on what incident response is, and that is the people that do the work, that actually go in and respond. These are going to be highly technically skilled people, right? So again, this is the technical components and activities you need so that you can properly investigate and contain an incident. Whew, right there, right? I'm good at writing definitions, right? But there you go. Again, highly technical skills. They're great at things like log analysis and malware analysis. They probably know their networking quite well. They're also going to be really well versed in operating systems and forensics. That's going to be their skill set of the people that perform incident response, because they are the technicians that go in and, think of it like, I'm a military guy, so I like special forces, right? These would be boots on the ground that are dropped behind enemy lines and doing a whole cool stuff you think about, jumping out of airplanes and shooting guns and running from bad guys and stuff like that. Really cool. But the people that are dealing with the media is like, oh, it seems that we've had an incident in X, Y, or Z, and it's going to be some chief of staff. It's going to be somebody that's not doing it, but is the go-between. So there's incident handling versus incident response. Hopefully that helps you figure out the difference, but you'll also probably are now going, okay, I see why they kind of get used interchangeably.
For some reason, all I can think is rodeo clown.
So Who's the guy gets between you and the bull?
Yeah, where the bull's like CEO execs and they're coming down, they're trying to bear down on you.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to get out of the way and make sure things are happening because there's other, and whatever. Yep, I don't know that the metaphor holds, but for some reason, that's what popped in my head.
I get it.
Now, as far as incident response, can you take us through some of the processes of like how I would respond to these things? Because I guess the PR part is going to be very personalized to the individual who's handling that, whereas the response type is going to be more methodical because it is a technical aspect, right?
Yeah, and even with the handling portion of it, it will probably be rolled into one of the like phases of a process, right? So there's a couple of different IR processes that you can go with. Since this is a SANS kind of thing, I went with SANS with their process for doing incident response. Hopefully that doesn't upset anybody out there. Now, there are some phases or steps to this process. We're going to just kind of quickly rattle through those so that we're aware of them. And I don't know if you necessarily have to memorize the steps, but if you're going to do this and you need to assimilate this knowledge, it's probably a good idea that you go over it a few times just to understand at least the philosophy behind why each step. Why does this one start first? Why is that next? What comes subsequently? And why it makes sense to do it this way. So let's go with these steps. The first one is going to be preparation, right? So this is the research and deploy of applicable, like what do we need to do to prepare for an incident? So we sit down and we make a plan to make a plan, right? Like we have to do certain things to be prepared for an incident. I don't know which one it's going to be, or if it could be this or could be that. We're going to get to how we determine those things in a minute. But right now, I just need to know that I need to be prepared in some way, shape, or form. And I can do that by making policies that say we use X, Y, or Z technologies because they secure up our platform. Okay, and we're going to put these security controls into place because it's an easy lift, and we're creating more security. So we're reducing through this preparation our security vulnerability status, okay? Then we're gonna move into identification. This is really where the metal meets the meat kind of thing, where we're recognizing that an incident has occurred, right? So we've done all the prep, we've prepared for an incident, we've got a plan ready, we have teams, set aside, everybody's got their area of responsibility thing kind of going on, but how do I know that something bad has happened? How do I identify that is a thing? And you can think of it in a couple of different ways. Sometimes we just have alerting software that will tell us, IDS and IPS, right? What do? You have told me that this is bad, or it's best practice that we shouldn't allow this, and I'm seeing it. So I'm letting you know this is happening. You probably want to take a look, right? So, okay, that's probably the first step to identifying that an incident occurred. Maybe my antivirus or anti-malware or my endpoint security goes whoop, 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 whoop. The warning, Will Robinson, this is not good. And it alerts me. So those are going to be the key indications. It might come from people as well, where they say, my computer's running really weird. Or, by the way, I got a pop-up that says that my files have been encrypted and looking for some Bitcoin. I don't understand what's going on. That's a good indication that something bad has happened. If I saw that, I would probably cry a lot. But there you go. I need to be able to identify that, and that's the next step, identification. So the step after this is going to be containment. Right? So hopefully you're seeing the logical progression of this at this point. I need to stop the thing from happening, or at least get it contained, move it away from all the other sensitive bits of my world there. This is going to include things like network segmentation. Sometimes you want to just yank the power cable out of that. Most times when it comes to instant response, or a lot of times when it comes to instant response, I won't say most, that's a little too big of a grab, but a lot of times when it comes to instant response, you don't necessarily want to kill that because there might be good evidence inside of that computer. So you got to think about forensics down the road that and when an incident has occurred. But I do want to isolate that. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm turning it off, but I might create a VLAN and shove it in there. I might migrate it all over into a virtual machine so that I can get it into a sandbox so I can start to analyze and see what the heck is going on a whole lot better, right? But I got to get it contained in some way, shape, or form. Just get that system isolated from the rest of your environment. Then we'll move on to eradication. Okay, we figured out what's happened. It was bad, not good. Now we got to clean this mess up. Got to get this gone. A bit of a debate on what eradication means in a lot of circles. Does it mean that antivirus or anti-malware has discovered malware and quarantined it, and now your system is clean? I don't know. Do you trust your antivirus or anti-malware system? If you do, there you go. Malware system did the anti-malware system did its job. You call it a day. Some other people take more of a scorched earth policy on this had something bad, so we're just going to wipe this hard drive out. You know what? Take that hard drive out, put a new hard drive in, and we're going to take this over and scrub it. Reinstall operating system, reinstall line of business software, and we'll give it back. And maybe restore from backup kind of thing.
And I guess your policy may be different depending on what part of your business you're concerned with, right?
It just depends, really. I mean, that could be it.
So I'm just thinking
it could
of
be
like
a myriad of things,
like a user workstation. I'd be like, nah, just take that out, new one, hand it back to them.
Oh yeah.
Versus, let's say I have a lot of like proprietary data, or I'd be like, we got to try it. We got to do something because I need that. Hopefully you're running backups, but
yeah. Yes. Fingers crossed on that one. That could definitely influence a way you go. Some people are just more paranoid, depending on like what kind of data you deal with.
Yeah.
So if you worked for the NSA, even if a mobile device got breached, they would probably set that thing on fire. It would never see their network again, right? They would just give you a new one.
Yeah.
Or they would do something so drastic that would meet compliance for their understanding of this has been eradicated. So doing multi-levels of reads and writes and overwriting and that kind of stuff for deletion of whatever. I highly doubt that they're just going to go. And it could be the case. I don't work for the NSA, so it's just up to them. And it's going to be up to you. Let's see here. We also need to identify and mitigate exploited vulnerabilities. How did this happen so that it doesn't happen again? Because just because you clean that off, if you set the system back to the way it was when it got breached, well, it's just going to get breached again. So you also have to put that in your eradication phase to make sure that we stop that from happening. So if there's any like breached accounts, you have to remove those or disable them for a certain amount of time until we're sure that it's more secure than it was when the breach occurred. Remove any malicious accounts that may have been created, right? Any malicious software that was installed. All this stuff has got to go before we call this done dinner. And then we can move into recovery, which is, okay, we have recovered from the incident. We have made it back to normal business operation. There's no longer an incident happening. No alarms are going off, no vulnerability. And actually, it's probably more safe than it was when we first started because we found the vulnerability that caused the issue and we've plugged that hole. It's all good. And now we are in that recovery state. You'll also, during recovery, want to validate that your recovery is working. So run a vulnerability scan, make sure that you actually plug the hole, check for any malicious software, rerun your antivirus, update all the definitions if that was the case, so on and so forth, okay? And then the very last thing that we're gonna do is lessons learned. We're gonna kind of sit around, we're gonna table talk and go, how did we let this happen? What can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? And then you're gonna take those lessons learned and you're gonna document all that and you're gonna put it in the IR plan. And guess what? You're gonna create a new revision and the cycle starts all over again. We love cycles in security because it's the nature of the business, right? Things change all the time and we constantly have to evolve what we're doing so that it is efficient and effective for our environments. So we take those lessons, we learn from them, we revise what we do so that it does not happen again. And sometimes we even share it with the group out there in the world, right? Those are the phases. I also went out to the internet and was like, let's see if we can find a template for incident response, incident handling. The National Institute for Standards and Technology, they helped us out with that. I found that there. Here's the link right there in in my box, but I will make sure to add that to the learner resources. But if you just wanted to see it, there it is. NIST is always helpful. They have so many good documents for us. And if you scroll down, we'll just take a look at the, what do you call that? I can't think of the word. The table of contents. Yes, thank you. It's right down here, acknowledgements. There we go, table of contents. So we got an introduction telling you the authority, purpose and scope, the audience, so who's this intended for, the document structure. This is a really good formulaic way to come up with an incident response plan, and also to do incident handling as well. If you need to get up to speed, I'm not saying that you have to use this document per se, but it has the majority, and it is the majority of things that you would need to know about to understand both incident handling and incident response. So there's kind of a lot of devil in the details inside of this document. If you wanted to use it, it would be fine. It is a world-known standard that people use. I mean, it's the government. God knows they do everything right. I'm sure that's phenomenal. But it's been vetted. It's a pretty good document. I would say it's decent and would serve you well to understand its concepts inside of it.
And it's always good to have something like this to start with when you're just getting started. I need to make sure those things, maybe it ends up that large portions of it don't work for you, right? Or for your business. But that's part of the revision process, right? You come back, and whether you've been breached or not, you come back and you review that. Hey, is this an appropriate incident handling, incident response, like setup? Are our teams appropriate? Those type things. So I think that's where people get really wound up at the beginning. They go, this is a lot. That's true. Yeah. But it's better to have things you don't need at the beginning.
And learn to
like whittle them down than to go, hey, we didn't think of that. We are in trouble. We are, uh-oh. So
what do they say? If I see farther than others because I stand on the shoulders of giants kind of thing, right? Learn from the people that came before you. And if you have no experience with IR or IH, then dive right in here. You'll see it kind of worked out. That's why I typically recommend something like this.
All right, well, Daniel, thank you so much for taking us through there, highlighting those nuanced differences, right? Incident handler, that's your PR guy.
Yeah.
Incident response, that's the boots on the ground team. Wonderful definitions in the learner resources. But I'm going to stick with my rodeo clown. And well, let's go ahead and end that one on this note. But join us back for more GSEC. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. So signing off for IT Pro TV, I've been your host, Justin Innocent.
I'm Daniel Lowry.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.